Good afternoon, LinksDAO crew. How's everybody doing?
Good evening, good evening. How are you?
What up, Liam?
Not too bad. Got some good golfing this Sunday. I don't know about you, but not a bad weekend.
Stoked.
Absolutely.
Was it
Love
good?
it.
Was it good golf, or was it just good that you were golfing?
Both great course. Um, First pass on the course was a bit rougher than the second, but played a course in southern Jersey. Really nice track. Really interesting. Had a small airport next to it, so we had a lot of low flying planes overhead, but a really cool track.
A lot of fun. Liam hit a ball so well that I thought it was mine, and I played it on one of the holes. Well, he looked around for his ball for like 10 minutes. I was like, "Were you?" Pulled it out of my pocket. I was like, "Were you playing a TaylorMade?" And he goes, "Yeah, I was," and I had to give him a courtesy par on the hole. So that was my bad. But other than that, really great outing. Really fun time.
It happens. It happens.
It happens. Big Bucks. How you
What's
doing, my
up?
friend?
Doing great. So good to be here. What's going on?
Just getting ready for one of the greatest, most special golf tournaments of all time, the Open,
Yes.
this week.
Yes,
And
yes, yes, yes.
our mutual friend Doug here, sent out a tweet earlier, and I hear that there's a friend y'all want to introduce for us today to talk about some picks for the Open this week.
Yeah, for sure. A good friend of mine. I'll let Dougie introduce him, but yeah, Joe's a great friend of mine.
So yeah, I wanted to bring on TourPicks because really we had an entire list of people to go through, and TourPicks, I won't lie, you had the coolest name. I went through all the list of gamblers. I saw TourPicks, and I was like, let's get this guy on. So I just shot up the tweet immediately, and then I was like, I don't know if this is gonna work. All of a sudden, Big Bucks chimes in, and now we're here. So TourPicks, aka Joe, how we doing, man?
What up, guys? Yeah, thanks for having me on. I have to say, like the best thing I've ever done on Twitter, I think, was choose that name. I get complimented on it quite often, but yeah, big fan of the Link style. I have my own version of I have an NFT. I've got the shirt that I was rocking the other day on the golf course. So as soon as you reached out and my man Buck sorta, I knew he was going to be on here. What's up, brother? Was excited to do this. So.
Yeah, man. This is throwing me all the way back from the old Gups Corner DFS days. So this is awesome to be back doing this, and thanks for joining, man. It's been a while since we've gotten together and hung out and talked golf. So this is going to be great.
Yeah, dude,
Uh,
absolutely. I remember it wasn't too long ago that I was picking you up from PBI Airport and we took a ride over to the Honda. We played a little golf together, so we had a ton of fun, and you've always been a big supporter of mine. So happy to do this, and I'm so excited about this week and what's to come. So as much as I can talk about it, the better.
That is awesome. I know we have an agenda day here, but I did get a hot tip from our guys at 8-Bit to ask you guys about the DFS charity golf outing that happened right before COVID.
Yeah,
I
that's
heard I heard there's some untold stories, so maybe at the end, maybe
oh
maybe at the
man.
end we can get into that, and I would love to hear if you guys have any funny stories about that.
Yeah, there's a lot of stories about that. It's a weekend of debauchery at the Honda Classic for a really great cause. For a really great cause, a lot of money raised for some really cool local charities that Joe's been a part of. So
Love to see it. Absolutely love
absolutely.
to see it.
So
Very cool.
what's on the agenda, Coop? Dougie?
So I'm gonna read through it. I want to know if you can say it because I know this is your livelihood, but let's just talk picks. I mean, I guess I'll go first, and I kind of want to see if you think my picks are wild.
Yeah.
My big pick for the week is gonna be Dustin Johnson to win it all. I want to hear some thoughts.
Shoo, man. Well, I mean, we're just kicking it off in a big way there. But real quick before we get totally into it, we're talking about the 150th Open, like at St. Andrews. This is like the event of all events. If you were watching ESPN, if you were watching the Golf Channel today, like Tiger Woods skipped the U.S. Open to make sure he could play this event. When he got in his accident, when he was making his comeback, like this was the one he circled. So this is a really impressive. It's just going to be a really cool event. There's going to be a lot of really cool things. I mean, they've held, I think this is the 29th Open at St. Andrews. And so it's obviously it's a major star-studded field. A lot of really interesting storylines going on in the golf world right now that are cool to talk about. So, all right, Joe, I'll kick it to you first. Dustin Johnson, give me it.
Yeah, so I bet DJ.
Let's go.
I did do that. I took a 40-1 number on it just to sort of echo your point about the level of excitement for this week. Is like it's insane, right? We're at St. Andrews. If there was any place more notorious in the game than Augusta National, it's St. Andrews. They've been playing golf in this town since the 1400s, guys. Like, think about that. Like, that's nuts. There's been a lot of talk about will this course stand up to the test of time? Yes, it absolutely will. These players are not going to break this place. I really don't believe that. They will set this thing up to play exactly how they want it to play. And they've been saying this about St. Andrews for the last 50, 60 years, that can it still, make these guys test the best players in the world? It can. Getting back to DJ, dude, I feel like it's a fair number, right? He was in this thing at St. Andrews before he got wiped by sort of a bad weather situation. I do feel like in terms of a betting market, I don't know how you guys feel about this, Bucks, but I feel like you get a little bit of bump when you want to like reach down and take one of these live guys, because the amount of hold that the bookmakers have on these players, it just doesn't seem like it's quite equivalent. I feel like a lot of people may be potentially shying away from betting them, and you get a couple extra points on their betting number, and it's Dustin Johnson, and he's 40-1 in a major. So yeah. I'm in.
Yeah, that's exactly it. I would say when you look at like the stats and you look for like DFS purposes, there's a lot of things you look at, but one of the things you always have to take into consideration is that ceiling, right? That upside. And when you look at some of these numbers at 35, 40, 45, there's not too many guys here that you can make the case that have a ceiling as high as Dustin Johnson. So at 40, that's a pretty sick number for sure.
Nice. I'm kind of glad to know. I honestly thought when I said that, they'd be like, yeah, we're going to leave this stage right now. That was really dumb. So that's kind of cool. Speaking on the Open, it being here for 150 years, I mean, but you got to think this is kind of a different Open. I feel like there's going to be some bad blood between the PGA Tour guys and the Live guys. And like, I know JT's got a fire under his ass, like thinking about it. And I think there's going to be a little bit of a different aspect to this Open than there have been all of the 150 years, which I think is awesome for the sport.
Yeah, I mean, and you hear it, right, when you're listening to some of the press conferences and some of the things that were being said, and then obviously what Tiger said this morning. Part of me believes that the animosity is overblown a bit, but when you hear the Rorys and the JTs and the Tigers being so vocal, and Rory's always a bit vocal, but even Tiger Woods, like when he's vocal, something's up, right? And so I think there's that storyline. And then with Greg Norman, even though he was not likely going to come, him not being invited to all of the past winners events and that kind of things. I mean, it's just a really interesting storyline. And I know for sure that if it came down to it and you're on Sunday, right, and there's Rory and there's DJ and some of the other guys from the Live Tour, like Rory's going to be thinking about it for sure.
Yeah, I think that they more or less gave, it looks like they kind of pin them into some difficult spots in regards to the tee time. Yes, there's animosity there, but at the same token, I think a lot of these guys like JT and DJ and Brooks, they live close to each other, right? They work out at the same gyms. They share a lot of the same friends. Like I don't think that they necessarily hate each other to that degree. Are they disappointed with the decision that they've made? Yes, absolutely. Like the most interesting thing to me is this may be like there's so much uncertainty right now. This may be one of the final times, like everything that's built up to this event. Like we may not get DJ and Brooks and Louis and all these guys in the strength of field like this in quite a while. So it's going to be fun just to have them all here. We've got the storylines, obviously, that are palpable with Tiger coming back and all of his history at St. Andrews. Like I can't imagine a more anticipated final major of the season. Everything is sort of lining up to a great week. We'll have to set those alarm clocks early, get the coffee brewing.
That's always the best.
And let's go, man.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and when you have an event like this where they let the course be the course and it's going to give you what it gives you and it's really heavily weather dependent on what that score is going to be. And so far the weather this week doesn't look too bad. And so you're probably looking at 14 to 18 under or something in that range. And so you for sure are going to see some fireworks. There's going to be some low scores. People are going to be in it on Sunday. And so it's just going to be super, super exciting for sure.
So is that something you guys take for picks as well? Is people like, I know you guys probably don't just take, guys to win outright. Probably have a lot of guys like top 10 and all that. I'd love to hear you guys like the art of, sports handicap in general, and especially golf. Like where do you guys go? Do you have a specific thing that you usually do every time, or is it always different? Like I'd love to get into how this became basically your bread and butter and how it's an art form, really.
Yeah, I would say for me that's more Joe's territory. I was big DFS guy for a long time and only got into sports betting, golf betting here and there. Especially when I'm live at an event, I like to pick the guys. But Joe's been making this his thing for a number of years now, so that's really Joe's territory there.
Yeah, so I think there's a lot of different ways to go about it, right? I don't take it so seriously that I'm using this as a profession by any means. It's still a hobby to me. I still have another job, but I also take it seriously enough to develop sort of a strategy. And I realize that can differ for everyone. How I kind of do it is I pick a target number, right, that I want to hit. So whether I have 6, 7, 8, 9 bets, the amount of bets doesn't really matter. But what I want that to sort of equal out to is that if I hit any of those guys to win, I'm getting paid out roughly the same amount and reaching that target number. And the way that I've kind of done it, and I structure my bankroll each week to sort of fit in there accordingly, is that I figured out that I basically need to hit a winner one in every, this season, I have a little spreadsheet in Google Drive Doc, one in every 6.8 events. If I hit one every 7 events, basically, then I'm going to be positive on the year. So that equates to about 6 or 7 winners per season. Luckily, I've been fortunate enough to sort of eclipse that mark. I think at this point right now, this season, I am at 7. So I'm hoping to get 1 to 2 more this season. But either way, at the end of the year, this is going to be another profitable year for me. So I'm happy about that. There's still 7 events left, basically, in the PGA Tour season, including the FedEx Cup playoffs, to knock out another 1 to 2. Hopefully, we get another one this week. But that's more or less how I structure it. I don't do as much of the top 10s, top 20s, first round leaders. I do feel like that kind of dilutes some of the value in many of these odds in most cases. Yeah. I usually stick to my outright bets, and then I do feel like some of the best value bets on the board are the matchups typically, because you're usually laying minus 110, 115, and the amount of juice that you have to put in there is minimal in comparison to the other markets and outright a top 10, top 20. I'm sorry, I apologize if that was long-winded and over anybody's head, but
No, that's great.
just try to give you kind of a glimpse at how I do it, not to say that that's right or wrong.
Yeah.
No, that's awesome. I was actually going through the sports book today and looking at those matchups, and I didn't really have a clue on if that is a good value bet. So that's awesome to hear. I mean, I haven't put anything down, but now I actually might.
Yeah. Those matchups are typically where you can find some outliers, right? Where there may be something that just stands out. Obviously, when you look at the book, like they're sharp, that's what they do. There's typically one or two guys that kind of stand out, but in the matchups, there's typically a few there that are pretty juicy for sure.
Yeah, and you kind of want to mitigate the amount of juice and hold that the sports book has in you, right? So if let's say you have an even matchup minus 110, 110 on both sides of it, you're looking at a 5% hold basically by the bookmaker or the sports book, where most outright markets it's 15 to 20. First round leader markets are upwards of 30 to 40% hold on those. So your best value in those who actually do it professionally will put the majority, if not like 80, 90% of their bankroll weekly into the matchups.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, yeah. So I saw one like Rory versus Shane Lowry, right? Are you going just based off the number there, or are you going on the man? Because that's a tough one, but I think I'd have to tip my cap to Rory just based on my heart. But if you look at the numbers, it seems like Lowry might be favorite.
Yeah, I mean that kind of thing. Like, there's so many different ways that you can look at it, right? Like, you can look at it pure numbers wise, who's getting the best value. I know there's a lot of different data out there to suggest first round scoring and that kind of thing. And even now that we're at a course like this where they're playing it fairly often and they probably have some history, their history here at the course. And so there's a lot of different analytics you can look at to kind of help guide you.
Yeah, I think in those situations it's tough because I'm not sure. I don't have that exact matchup on my couple of outlets right now, but I'm sure it's so heavily skewed in Rory's favor that you have to lay a lot
Yeah.
down there. I usually try and stick to ones that are relatively even, or even try to find a slight underdog. Like one that I took a little bit ago that I kind of like was it was Sam Burns versus Victor Hovland. Now Burns was an underdog and plus money in that matchup. Yet, if you look at the odds, Burns is like 45 to 50 to 1, and you can get Victor up to like 65 to 1. So you see a little bit of a discrepancy there. I think the two are on a little bit opposite in terms of trajectories. Burns has been sort of, on his way up, and Victor is in a little bit of a struggle right now. So those are the type of things I look to in matchups. The other thing is kind of picking on someone who's just not playing well. It's not always about taking someone that's good. It's finding someone that has lost something and lost confidence and lost form, and maybe their iron plays and they're mentally not in a good place. So that's kind of the situation with Victor. That's a lot of what I look at as a guy who's in a little bit of a struggle right now and trying to work his way out of it and trying to sort of pick on him in the matchup markets.
Yeah, for sure.
Oh, wow. That's actually cool because I did want to throw this out there, and then I have another question after that, but it's Will Zalatoris. I almost want to pick him to miss the cut. I don't know if that's a crazy move. I would love to hear your picks, but like I'm just thinking with the way he's been putting and the way he's been losing, at some point he's got to break.
Okay, so I'm not that bold. Will Z has become sort of the new version of Brooks in a way without getting a win, where you put it in, you amp up into a major championship and he's always going to be there. But I will say this, you are kind of onto something, and a buddy of mine, Andy Lack, put out on his Twitter page like the putting splits between how well he's performed with the putter in the major championships thus far this year versus his baseline, so his norm or his how he putts on an average PGA Tour event. And it's a vast difference. He's putting way better at majors, and you have to feel like some regression is due there at some point. The other thing is these greens at St. Andrews are also way different than the greens at the other three majors. Augusta National,
Yes.
the Country Club, Southern Hills were all extremely quick, smallish, compact. barely get it going and just get it on the right line type putts. These are different. These are bumpy. You're going to have 70, 80, sometimes 100-foot lag putts. They're slow. They're extremely slow. They take a lot of experience, which he does not have here. So I would agree that there is some regression there due with the putter. The other thing is where Will Zalatoris separates himself from the average PGA Tour player is really with his long irons. You put a 4, 5, 6 iron in his hand, and he laps the field because he's so good there. And that's often what major championships demand of a player in terms of success. This is a little bit different. We don't have quite the length. You're going to have to hit a lot of 100, 110, 115-yard shots and really be precise with it. And not to say he's not good at those, he just doesn't have the extreme gap on the rest of the field like he does with a 4-iron in his hand.
Yeah. I was going to say, I just think from a Zalatoris, one is golf, anything can happen, but he's so typically good with his irons compared to the norm that I think that alone in a situation like this where you have these massive greens is going to help significantly. And I have a hard time envisioning a guy like Zalatoris missing the cut here just because he's so steady typically.
Okay, let's agree to disagree. I guess one other question I could ask is there a difference when you're betting a major versus just a regular PGA Tour event? I would have to say, if I had to lean on something, there has to be, because there's that much added pressure and it's worth so much more. But I'd love to hear you guys' take on that.
Yeah, I think a lot of it depends on. I mean, there's a lot of data to suggest like first-time players versus their records in majors is not going to line up, and then you have other stats on certain players amp up for majors specifically, and vice versa. And so, yeah, I think there's definitely some validity in looking at certain players, and I know Joe is probably going to mention Brooks here in a minute. Certain players and their major performances. So yeah, there's validity in choosing certain guys for certain styles of events and certain locations, that kind of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of times it boils down to like the difficulty. The closer it plays to par, typically will lend itself better toward the best players, right? So you get that little bit of a knock in terms of betting it. Like someone who does this would probably more on the lines of a professional would probably tell you to bet every week the same. I put a little bit more into major championships. I do feel like the offering is a little better there. I want a little bit of more of a sweat. I like a little bit more on the line in a major. So I tend to bet it a little bit differently. Yeah, and yeah, guys like Brooks, like the pressure is built up. It's magnified here. You have the best players in the world. You have conditions that are going to play their toughest throughout the year. So I definitely think that there's some validity to that. Although, ultimately it boils down to how well you're playing that week. And I think that if you can isolate a couple of spots on the board with some value, either way, I don't bring it too much into like how I'm sort of handicapping it per se.
Okay, that's cool. Speaking of that value, so what are two, I guess, what's a value pick that you got that you two are both like, I'm throwing a couple shekels here, and if it hits, I'm covered for the rest of my bets and more. And then one pick that's just like, steady Eddie. Like something that you're not quite like sure on, but you're like, this has the odds. It's not that risky. I think this is going to hit regardless of the outcome of the Open. So your most risky pick, or maybe not risky pick, but like your hope and a prayer pick, and then your, I don't know, I don't want to call them the steady Eddie picks. What do you call those bets?
Yeah, I think like for me, like my bet at the top and the guy I feel most confident in this week, and I think a lot of people share this sentiment is Cameron Smith. 28-1, I feel like it's a very fair number. If you look at how he's performed in the biggest events this year, I sort of ran the numbers on the 3 majors plus the Memorial plus the Players Championship, which have been the 5 strongest fields of the year, and he's like plus 43 strokes gained total over those events. So he's really found a way to separate himself. If things changed a little bit differently, he could have won the Masters. If things go a little differently earlier in that round, he won the Players. I think that he was live at the PGA Championship for quite a bit. He was leading the Memorial going into the final round. He's really good, and where he excels is creativity. It's short game. It's putting.
Yes.
And this place has a little bit more forgiving off the tee than we saw at the U.S. Open, which was his only missed cut because he does get a little bit loose there. But the other thing about links golf and like open championships is you have to be able to handle some adversity, some bad bounces, some randomness where you may hit a good shot and it ends up with a really bad break in a bad spot. Cam Smith doesn't get flustered by about anything. He's able to rebound really well, and I feel like given the number at 28, 26 to 1 right now, depending on where you shop it, I really like his odds to win. And my long shot guy that I took was over 125 to 1, and it was Patrick Reed.
Oh my.
He's
What a
rebounding,
pick.
guys.
What a pick.
He's really sort of got his iron play trending back in a right direction to where his norm was. Played good in one of his last PGA Tour appearances at the Charles Schwab, which was one of his best finishes, was his best finish of the PGA Tour season. Then finished third in Portland, and you kind of take that with a little bit of a grain of salt, but he ditched these sort of PXG driver and clubs where he was contractually obligated to play. And he went back. He started hitting it further. He started hitting it straighter. He started hitting it better, and he finished better. And anytime, like, if this thing plays hard and conditions do get tough and it gets really firm and difficult around the greens, he's still got some of the best hands out there. And he, like, finds a way to, when he gets on leaderboards, he's not a guy that I'm worried about the pressure is going to affect him adversely. He tends to rise up in these occasions. He's got 9 victories. He's won a Masters. The guy's really good under pressure and in contention, and you can get triple digits on him.
Yep.
That is awesome.
Yeah. On my side, I think so. I started out the week with Cam Smith at 28.
Yeah.
So that was kind of like my go-to. I was pumped to see him there. Everything Joe said is exactly why I have him. And then kind of like some long shots that I just like because, and Joe knows this, back when I was doing the DFS stuff, a lot of my picks in DFS were initially looking at the course setup and whose game may suit the course that week and the way it's going to play. And so for me, when I look at something like St. Andrews, where distance is obviously having that distance is an advantage, but at St. Andrews, I think that's negated a little bit here. And so guys like Kevin Kisner at 200, a guy that is never going to just hit it past the other guy, but he's a grinder. He's solid around the greens, really solid long putter. So I have him. And then the last guy, and this is pure just a heart play. Love the way he strikes the ball. Love the way he flights the ball, is Gary Woodland at 130.
Yep,
and so,
I like that. Bucks, have you ever played in Scotland or links golf over there?
I have not played over there. I've played some links golf here stateside, which I can't say is the same. But I've definitely played a lot of links courses over here.
Yeah, there's a couple of players that like interest me because I'm curious whether or not having that experience playing in Scotland, playing in the UK on these exposed linksy type courses, like how much does it really mean? I know it means something, but it's hard to measure how much. And there's a player like specifically, like I took Cameron Young. So he's 130 to 1. He has no experience over there, but when you look at the numbers and you start to break down some of the data and the stats that he's been able to pile up, a guy that's got his feet in the fire in major championships at the PGA. He's 40 to 50 to 1 in the U.S. Open, and now there's like 130 to 1s out there, basically because he has no experience. And I just feel like that may be inflated. Like I look at off the tee stats a lot, right? And the reason that I look at off the tee is because I feel like it's the best form of strokes gained stats. And the reason why, they all start from the same spot. You can find flaws in nearly every other strokes gain stat, even approach around the green. It depends on where you're coming from, right? And on a second shot, everyone's hitting from different places. Do you have a bad lie? Do you have a good lie? Is it a flyer? Do you have to work it around the tree? Are you short-sided? Are you in the fringe? Like all these different things. The stat, there's little flaws about it. Off the tee is the most pure strokes gain stat because everyone starts at the same spot, and he's number one on the PGA Tour in the last 36 rounds. I know he can hit it far. He's got a pretty good short game, but he's got no experience over there. And I was just curious to think, like, how much do you value guys who have been there, who have done it, who have the sort of notches under their belt with Links Golf?
I think
Hey guys, I want to interrupt real
Good.
quick and say
Yeah.
just how much I appreciate you having this conversation up in here. I'll let you answer that question, but I got to jump. But really appreciate it. This is so interesting, and I'm really
Thanks,
looking
dude.
forward to listening to the rest of this when I can afterwards. But we're gonna keep this
Yeah,
going, and awesome. Thanks so much.
Thanks,
Thanks, Coop.
Yeah,
Yeah,
guys, I don't want to take too much of your time. I hope you guys are good to keep going because this has been like electric, really.
Yeah.
It's been awesome.
Yeah, no problem. I have a couple more minutes, and then I got to get with the kids to bed. But let's touch on what you're saying there, Joe. I think it's a fine line, right? Like,
right.
When you know a course super, super well, like an Augusta National, like a St. Andrews, like I think it is incredibly, incredibly helpful. And then on the opposite end of the spectrum, there is this blissful ignorance about seeing a golf course kind of like for the first time, where you're not so worried about certain areas and certain places that you can miss, and so you just like beat it around the golf course. And obviously they're being guided, right? They each have the new guys, anyways. They're probably going to have like a local caddy at least for the first couple practice rounds, guiding them around. But I think for a guy like him, I mean, he hits the ball so well that I think him having not played here is certainly going to affect him. But it's not like he's seen the course a couple times and he kind of knows where to miss and not miss and that kind of thing. I think he's just going to get out there and get after it.
Guys, that was awesome. I would like to have Joe actually kind of plug what you're doing, like where our members can find you on socials, how we can join your community and how we can get more of your picks, and, see more of what you do day to day.
Yeah, absolutely, man. At TourPicks is the Twitter account. Click the little profile, give me a follow. All the stuff that I do, like I don't stick anything behind a paywall, so it's all free. I put all my stuff out there, and it's you can track everything. You can look at it. It's very transparent. I put my picks out on Wednesdays. I do a Tuesday thing for oddschecker.com where we go over some props. Monday night is the biggest night for me because I do my show, which is called Preferred Lines. It's basically a golf gambling podcast. I go into this stuff. I try to often bring a guest on to provide a little bit of insight. So that's Monday night. It streams live on YouTube and Twitter. I have that on Apple Podcasts as well. And then Wednesday night, tomorrow night, I close everything down with my buddy Rick Gaiman, who I saw was in listening a little bit earlier. So Rick's a great dude. We do a show called Power Hour for Jock Market. So if you guys are into like day trading and stocks, I know a lot of you guys are sort of in those fields. It is awesome. Like it is an app where basically you trade players like their stocks. So they have an IPO price. That player does good, their stock price goes up for the week. That player does bad, the stock price goes down. You can buy and sell shares of players actually playing in the tournament throughout the thing. So that's Wednesday nights at 8:15. Greatly appreciate you like asking me to be a part of this. I'm always down to talk golf, and I'm a big supporter of you guys as well. So appreciate your time. If anyone has any questions, I've got a little bit more time here. Happy to answer, but much appreciated you asking me to be a part of it. Always fun.
Yeah, TourPicks was by far the coolest name. I couldn't not pick it, dude. Like, I could not. But I guess we should like open this up to the audience now. See if anybody has like some tour picks that they want to share and why they have them. And so if anybody wants to come up and share what they think is going to happen during the Open, feel free. Raise your hand. Let's get it going.
Yeah, I can allow any requesters to speak. I had one.
Yeah.
I was curious. We had a I mean, two guys I'm curious about. Defending champion Colin Morikawa. I know he hasn't been great in his last few starts, but obviously defending champion. I'm curious. Any thoughts on Morikawa there?
For me, he's one of those guys, and there are a few of them, and it's probably like this for everyone out there, that I just can't get him right. When I think he's going to play well, he doesn't play well. When I kind of fade him a little bit, he plays pretty well. He hasn't been trending in the best direction. I'm worried that he's not very good around the greens. He's not very good with the putter, but that certainly didn't hurt him last year. Now, that said, he was on much more of a better tear coming into the Open Championship last year. He threw some people off the scent with some comments right before it started that he was struggling, and then of course he goes out and wins, which often happens in the game of golf, as you guys know. He's one of those anomalies for me that I just can't get right. So for me, I kind of just don't take him. I feel like it's a fair price on him in both DFS and in the betting markets. What about you, Bucks? Do you have any take on O'Colin?
Yeah, I think he's one of those guys that can contend any given week. I will say, as I said before, when I look at the golf course and see who suits it, I think that a guy like Colin, where his biggest differentiator is going to be his iron play and how good he is. These greens are massive, and so there's going to be a lot of guys that can get away with missing a bit more, and so his advantage over the field's taken away a little bit. And when you've seen some of his past wins, they're on golf courses that require precision. And so I think, yes, he can win. I just think that his advantage this week is kind of diminished. and let me, because I got to hop here in a second, but I do want to say that I would give up just about anything to see Tiger Woods' Sunday final pairing.
I think everybody in this spaces right now would like to see Tiger Woods in the final pairing on Sunday.
Yeah. What's one more for Tiger at Old St. Andrews? I mean, I think we'd all love to see it.
Yes.
I got one more player that I'd like a thought on. I think he's had the best year this year, and it's kind of hard to argue otherwise. Scotty Scheffler. He's been perfect this year. A few wins. The Masters, obviously. Yeah, I guess your thoughts.
All is kind of calm on Scotty right now. It's like the night before Christmas, and not really many people are talking about him. It's a fair price on him. Look, do I think that his run is over? No. There's other options there that I think make more sense from a betting perspective to me. I'm more interested. I'm kind of debating right now. I have Cam Smith, but I have a spot for another guy at the top. I'm between Justin Thomas and Matt Fitzpatrick. I haven't quite made up my mind on which of them yet. And maybe I'm foolish for overlooking Scotty and how well he's played. I just think that the other two guys with a little bit more experience in Open Championships, maybe coming in playing a little bit better, while Scotty may be on a little bit, peaked around the Masters and maybe downturning just a hair. Those other two guys, I think, are still playing at an elite level and sort of at the peaks of their game. And you can get, Scotty's like 16 to 18 to 1. Those other two guys right now are 20. So they have my interest a little bit more. Would it shock me if Scotty wins? Absolutely not. He's awesome. He's got an incredible short game. All the confidence in the world right now. But for me, I'm just, from a betting side, more interested in those two other guys at a couple more digits in terms of a price payout.
Fair enough. Appreciate the insight.
Guys, I cannot thank you enough for coming on. I mean, we got this done in 24 hours of tweeting each other, so that is really cool. Joe, thank you. Everybody, shoot Joe, a.k.a. TourPicks, a follow. Go to our YouTube, subscribe so you can listen to this again and hear his awesome picks for the Open. Joe, you're the man. Thank you, man.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Like I mentioned to you, a huge supporter, so I'm always keeping tabs on what you guys are up to, and everything has been going awesome so far, and I wish you all the best. I appreciate this. We'll definitely have to do it again, maybe come next major in April when we got another big one on tap.
Let's do it. I'm all for it. All right, Joe. Thank you so much, man.
Thanks, guys. Have a good night.
Take care.
Thanks everybody for taking a listen. Thanks again, Joe and Bucks, for kind of organizing this. But yeah, an exciting open this weekend. I'm sure everyone will be following along. Take care, everybody.
See you guys.